like to call the Board of Selectmen's meeting to order. It's October 4th at 6:30. Mr. Owen, do we have need for a non-public session?
Yes, I believe the board has a personnel matter to work on.
And you have nothing else?
No.
Okay. Next on the agenda is the September 20th minutes. Does anybody have any changes or corrections? I have a small one on page 10. The paragraph just above the motion, it says Linda Murr stated that RSA 231.10 stated that the town attorney is saying we need to do a, and I'd like the word title in there.
Title search.
Do I have a motion to accept the minutes as amended?
So moved.
Second.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Right, next on the agenda is the bulk vote. We have the manifest, we have an intent to cut, and a raffle permit. Does any board member have anything that they need to change? Hearing none, can I have a motion?
I move that we approve the items dated on the agenda, the items A through C.
Do I have a second? Any
Second.
further? All right, all those in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, next we're on to new business, 2018 water rates. Mr. Owen, are you going to start that, or shall I call Mr. Ford up?
Well, I guess we can both participate in the discussion. As you'll see in your packets, Underwood Engineers has provided a new analysis with some additional options, rate-setting options. This new analysis takes into account that the Budget Committee voted to set the contribution from the general fund to the water fund for fire protection at 17.5%. And so that translates into about $317,000 that will be contributed to the water fund in support of the water department operations and expenses. Of course, we were at $345,000, so that we still have a hole in the budget to address. So these rate options address both the additional about 2% that is represented by additional cost of the water department and need to start to setting aside some funds for the asset management plan for the water system, and then the another about 2.5% addresses the hole in the budget that was created. So the total impact is about 4.5%, and you'll see option F, which is the recommendation of town staff, which is to raise the water rates 4.5% effective January 1st, 2018. Dave?
Right, so this goes along with the rate study we had Keith Pratt present last month, and this is for only the water rates only, and it's a percentage increase that would affect both the fixed monthly fee, and it would affect the gallon rate over 1,500 gallons in a month. And Dave is correct that what we're trying to do is two things here, is to get a long-term plan in which we can begin to fund the asset management plan by using, right now we have over $700,000 of debt service, and over the next 10 years that's going to fall off drastically. So the intent is, instead of reducing our rates or keeping our rates flat, that money that's the delta between the where we are with the principal and interest payments, as that falls off, we take that difference each year and put it into our capital reserve account to help fund the capital needs going forward. And second, like Dave says, we have a 2% annual increase in the budget, which is kind of like almost a cost of living type increase. There's nothing significant there. There's no plans for additional manpower or anything significant. So if there were other changes, then that might have to change. So this gives you a long-term rate, 2% a year. And then, like Dave says, we kind of have to make it up for the budget committees. And what they did is last year we went from 350 to 300,000. This year with 17.5%, that equates to, I think, 316,000 about.
316, 317, right in that
Right, so we're having to
vicinity.
make up that difference with that 2.5%. The other thing which we're not proposing tonight, but it will be next year, will be the sewer rate. The sewer rate asset management plan has just come out, so I haven't had a chance to review it, but we're getting to you probably at the next meeting. That is similar, that we have a lot of long-term needs. Right now, we're in the black, but next year, in 2019, it looks like we're going in the red, so we'll be looking at a rate increase next year for the sewer system that'll be similar to this. It'll be at 2%, and then it probably we'll also develop a plan that's somewhat similar in terms of we do have debt service on the sewer side. As that falls off, whether we can use that to supplement an asset management plan and cap reserve fund for sewer and pump stations. But tonight, that's what we have, but there's a lot of options, and we didn't, because you can keep it lower and not fund fully your asset management plan. That's just kicking the can down, and then we'll have to stop bonding again at some point. Or you could look at a fixed rate on the fixed rate going up to $22, which would be a big jump. So there's a lot of different things we looked at, but I think Dave and Pete and I thought this was the best one overall. Any questions on that?
Remember, I have a comment. I just have a real hard time raising the water rates by 4.5% and raising the unit charge. And that'll have a significant impact on the businesses, the service agencies, local residents who use town water. And as Dave said, you got 2%, which I understood is the operating and maintenance costs, and the 2.5 is to make up for the $45,000 that had been removed. And I just want to make it clear to the people who are listening tonight that the hydrant fee is the amount of money placed in the fire department budget that is paid for by the taxpayers. The hydrant fee pays the Water Enterprise Fund for the cost, and you can probably help me here. It's for the larger tank, the pipes.
Yes. So it's what Keith explained last time, and it's very important to understand why it seems like a lot of money, and how come other communities have different rates. But the American Water Works Association has a standard, and what it says is that depending on the size of your community, we need to make if we were just supplying drinking water to the downtown area, our pipes could be much smaller. We wouldn't have to have the big storage tanks. Our treatment plant would not have to be as big. We wouldn't have to have the redundancy. So it becomes a compounding increase in your system to have fire protection. And based on that, we went through the equations, and we fall in a range of 20 to 30%. So we actually went with the 20%, which was voted on back in 2007. So this goes back to when we first had significant rate changes, because we went to the conservation rate, and we had significant increases, and that's when we went to the 20%. Board of Selectmen voted it in, and for 10 years, we've been trying to get it implemented. Every time we get a little close, it gets pushed back. This last year, it got pushed back significantly, which created the hole in the budget.
Yeah, and I have another option for us tonight, but I want to say beforehand, I respect the Budget Committee and the hard job that they have trying to develop an operating budget that also provides for the residents the services we need while trying to keep the tax impact low. But as I started thinking about this and going back to that vote of the in 2007, that we really could establish a warrant article and ask the voters again how they would like to do it. We had over 2011, it was 300,000. We kept it there for 2 years, trying to get to that 20%. In 2013, it was 225, and we kept it there for 2 years. 2015, we went to 345, and we kept it there for a year, and then it came tumbling down. And so I think it would make sense because obviously we have two different philosophies, the one of the Budget Committee and the one of the Board of Selectmen. So I would like the Board of Selectmen to create a warrant article that would ask to bring the hydrant fee up to 20% of the operation and maintenance, which is what my understanding that 20% is based on, of the Water Enterprise Fund over 2 years. So the warrant article would ask for additional $31,000 in hydrant fees in 2018 and another $31,000 in 2019 to be added to the hydrant fee already in the operating budget. So that would bring it back to that 360, I think it is 2 number, which is 20% of the O&M.
It varies year to year, but yep.
Yeah, so that would be 2 years, similar to what we've done before, and to ask the voters whether they would support that. That would allow the board tonight to raise the fees by 2%, and that would also be the unit fee by 2%. Put the warrant article out, see what the voters, how the voters respond. If it was positive, then that would go into the operating budget. If it was negative, that the board would come back and then raise the rate a second time in 2018, maybe in May to 2.5 to bring the water, get some more revenue for the Water Enterprise Fund. So that was kind of what I was hoping to do. I just think 4.5 is a big whack. I don't know what other members of the board think about that or what they have in mind.
I do think, I'm not agreeing or disagreeing because I would defer to your superior experience, but I do think that voter education would be very necessary in this because even in reading this, I find it, and I'm not stupid, hard to understand all the different options. So the average voter will probably also find it difficult, so you'd have to have some good explanation involved. That's my only comment.
Yeah, Linda, I had a question on the option you just presented here. I understood the 31,000 for 18 and 31,000 for 2019.
Yep.
Going along with that, would you be then dropping the 2018 rate adjustment from 4.5 to 2%?
Yes, that
okay?
we would enact tonight, and then based on whether that warrant article passed or not, if it passed, we're done. If it failed, then we would have the option of coming back in, May or maybe April, May, and add another 2.5 to the rate if we felt that that's what the Water Enterprise Fund needed.
Might I suggest that while the water fund is in the red right now, year to year, overall we're still in the black. We have 1.5 million of cash reserves. We might want to talk to Brenda about that. Having 2 rate increases in 1 year may be confusing, and then we're going to have another rate increase with the sewer and the water in the following year. So I might suggest the 4.5% could start in January of 2019.
I'm fine with that if you're comfortable with having that drop in revenue. I was just trying to get some more revenue back. But if you think the water fund can handle that, I have no problem doing it that way either.
It just delays us funding the cap reserve account, but I think in terms of implementation and especially now when people are starting to budget, it's hard to say, well, is it going to be 2% or 4.5%? How do you budget for it now if you vote a 2% with the potential for another 2.5% 6 months later? So I think it makes it difficult for some of the bigger users like Brewster and the hospital to plan. So if we go year to year, I think it might be better.
And I think we need to help those organizations knowing
Ahead of time.
that ahead of time. I mean, I know for the Children's Center would not have budgeted or be any close to being able to handle a 4.5. Right. So that would give the school district and give Brewster and some of the non-profits and businesses the opportunity to do some thinking of how to budget.
Just another question for Dave this time. If we went that route there and, operating in the red, and you said, we could fund it with that 1.5 million we got there in the capital reserve, was that going to take money away from any projects, the stuff that you had kind of planned out for that money at this time? Or?
No, the way we've got it set up is the 1.5 million now, and that's our cash reserves. A portion of that we were going to propose to put into a cap reserve account and then kind of build that cap reserve account. But in 2018, we're proposing 2 projects that are going to use that cash. The deficit we're talking about is probably $35,000-$40,000. So that's kind of small in relation to the 1.5 million we have, and I think the 400 or 500,000 we're planning on spending. So we'll still have over $1 million cash, but we do want to get it corrected. You know, I'm not saying it's a good thing to be in the red, but by 2019, we'll be looking at another 2% increase because of O&M, and then we throw the 2.5 on, so it could be 4.5% if we don't get a positive vote. If you get a positive vote, then it just becomes 2% all along. And then, like I say, the sewer can expect a 2% increase as a minimum in 2019.
Okay.
Any other comment? People, how would you like to move ahead? Dave? You want to do what I suggest?
Yeah, I think that's a better way to do it. Because then we can get the feedback from the public.
Yes.
And maybe the Budget Committee will see the fact that, you know, it needs to be at that 20% level in order to fund this without increasing these water rates significantly. Because 4.5% on some of these,
Well, one of the
some
things
of
we
these
can,
people is going to be a pretty good hike.
right, and I think that's one of the things we could maybe do is show examples of 4.5%, because the other aspect is, okay, what is it going to do to the tax rate? Well, if you take that, 2.5%, that's 35,000 on a tax rate, it's going to be very small. So if someone lives in a certain house, the tax rate's going to go up so much, the water rate's going to go so, and that's kind of what the lesser of two evils. How do you best implement it? Again, we do have some of the highest water rates in the state. In the sewer, we're almost the highest on the sewer because we have a complete system, but we have a small user base, which is one of the reasons why we've gone this route to begin with.
And the fact that they voted, if you're telling me in 2007, 20%, we're just getting...
The Board of Selectmen voted. We
Voted.
didn't.
Okay,
We didn't have
voted.
a
Okay.
town vote.
Yeah, that we went and we've been implementing it along
Yes.
at that rate. Dave Bowers?
I'll agree with that.
Okay. I would like to make a motion that the board raise the water rates by 2% starting January 1st, 2018, and it'll be part of the billing cycle of February 1st, 2018. And that would make, I've got this right here, that's not the right one. That's the right one. Here it is.
I've got a rate chart here
Yeah.
for 2%, if you want to.
Yeah, you got it for everybody? Okay.
Yeah.
So the monthly charge will go from $20 to $20.40, and the price per gallon would go to $10.73.
Price per 1,000 gallons.
1,000 gallons, yes, after the first 150,
Yep.
1,500 gallons are part of the 20.4. Everybody
Yep.
understand what I was saying there?
Yep.
Dave, that is okay with you?
Yep.
Okay. That's my motion. Do I
Second.
have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
And then when we get to warrant articles, we'll discuss how we word the warrant article. We should start working on that.
Yeah, I'm not quite sure the best way to word it all, and we'll need to work on that, and then to get a good presentation to get them to understand.
And also, should I also work on a warrant article for the setting up of a capital reserve account for the water department? Because Dave and I talked about this. It's kind of, because it is all their money.
We can work on that and with town council.
Okay.
Great.
Anything else anybody has? Okay, there's that one. Next item on the agenda is the dockside project funding and schedule. Who wants to take this?
David?
Okay, Dave, Board, we're going to give this all to you.
Doc file. So last meeting, I kind of dropped on you a memo at the last minute, so I think you need some time to take a look at it. The memo talks about the funding and schedule, but it also is referencing the tie and bond asset management report that was done. I don't know if you guys had a chance to talk to Luke. He did get into the water over the weekend, and he told me he did verify that a lot of the things that were there are still there, and some of the things are significant. He believes the residential, the finger docks are not as bad, and I think the report doesn't say they're that bad. It's just that the recommended code now is much stricter than it was 20 years ago, and that's one of the issues about going to 100 pounds per square foot, which is pretty bulky. But clearly, the emergency stuff we're talking about should be put into a warrant, a capital outlay, $40,000 to do the emergency repairs, and that was 2018. Then there was the question of the expansion project, and then there's a question about the parking lot, which was kind of been on the docket for a couple of years, and then the bathrooms. So we have 4 relatively big projects, and what we've decided, or what we recommended to the CIP committee, was to hold off on the parking lot, because obviously we're going to be staging the other jobs off the parking lot, and we are going to be digging up the parking lot in November with the sewer project and the boat ramp. So we probably will do a shim on that. It might be too late in the year this year, but we can do it in the spring before it gets busy. That will be kind of a temporary. And then the most important thing, I think we all agreed, was the public bathrooms. Those are, we've just found the money now to start the design on that. And one of the concerns was, okay, very close to that wall on the Smith River, and that's some of the areas that were identified as a problem. So we did increase the budget for that to make sure that the foundation of the new bathrooms will be tied in and that the wall will be reinforced at that time, so we won't have to have any duplication of effort. We're also recommending in 2018 to begin the engineering for both the extension, because we've already got good momentum going there. We don't want to stop that. We want to finalize the drawings and get the permits and get up-to-date cost estimates. But we also got to know about the repairs. The report, which is relatively detailed, does talk about useful life, and while we are approaching the useful life, that doesn't mean it's going to fall apart at the end of its useful life. We have a lot of our infrastructure is beyond its useful life, and it's still functioning fine. It just puts it on a warning list. Hey, you got to keep an eye on this now. We got to maybe a little bit more preventative maintenance, keep an eye on it, but it is a red flag. So the question of doing the engineering for the repairs now seems to make sense at the same time as we're doing the engineering for the new ones, because if we might be able to phase the work and make sure the critical stuff does get done first, which would be the emergency repairs, which we're going to fund in 18, and then and then 19 would be the idea that we could either go forward with the repair project, or we'll go forward with the dock project expansion, or both of them, and then we'll have better ideas. Right now we have kind of guesses about the cost estimates, and they're pretty significant. And in my memo I said there's 2 ways of going about that, whether or not you want to put a lot of money aside each of the next 3 years and try to do it cash, or whether you look at a bond. But I think probably the most appropriate thing is let's figure out exactly what the fix is, what the cost is, and the priorities, and then we can look at potentially how we're going to fund it in 19, because it might be a bond, or maybe we set up a capital reserve and try to fund it that way. But that was the intent of my memo, and if anyone has any questions on the report, I'd be more than happy to answer.
I have, when the CIP committee looked at 3 of your projects or requests for 2018, the $40,000, which I like to call the immediate repairs, the $50,000 for the commercial and residential dock, retaining wall, engineering and permitting, and then the expansion of the docks. If we add those 3 together, it comes to $115,000, which could be a warrant article. It doesn't put that amount of money in the operating budget, and it's something that gives the taxpayers some warning on what is coming. I think Dave Owen was the one who pointed that out, and get their support as we move forward with this project. So it's just it seems like a way to just kind of put it all together. I didn't know how anybody else felt on that.
Yeah, when I kind of looked at it, at the options, first of all, it's a, great report and, nicely laid out here too, Dave. I really like the idea, the alternate funding there without the bonding myself, to try and do it, do the emergency repairs like you said we need to do now and stuff, but then also, start funding some of the ones that are out 2 or 3 years from now, put some money into capital reserves and stuff like that, just to avoid the bonding, because, we have some fairly, a couple large ones, I think, coming our way down the pike here in the next year or two. And, worst case, if we had to, if the large not there, the rebuilding and the extension of the retaining walls and construction repairs of estimated $420,000. Now, if that ends up growing, maybe that item be bonded or something, but at least I think a lot of these other smaller pieces, I think we could do, on a capital reserve type approach and, pay cash as we go.
Yeah, I personally like that idea. I agree with Brad. The only thing would be the restrooms. Those need to be done this year.
Yeah, I think that's number one priority. Didn't we
Yeah,
say
that would
Should be the number one priority.
And we said that was going to be cash too, I think, right?
Yeah.
Yep. I was just looking, instead of taking the 40,000, the 50,000, and the 25,000 and putting them in the operating budget, it was to combine those and do another warrant article for $115,000 that encompasses those 3 items.
Yeah, all together in one.
All together in one.
Exactly.
It seems like that is a way to ensure that that moves forward.
Did the CIP committee recommend the 50,000 for the parking lot to keep funding that capital reserve?
I don't know if that was in there. I'd have to.
Yeah, because that was,
I
I
will
think,
check
that's what you're
tomorrow.
saying,
We're
is
gonna
keep
need
funding these other projects. If we keep putting 50,000 a year for the parking lot, we'll have all the money, it won't be as big an issue.
If it was one of your memos, I think they did.
I think it was a separate recommendation from the dock funding.
Yeah, I think it was too, but we'll be meeting tomorrow, and I'll go check that. Make sure, and make sure that 50,000 for the parking lot. Brad, are you talking about putting any other of these funds in for this year? Another capital reserve? You want a capital reserve for the expansion of the docks? I'm not quite sure.
What?
Are we going to do the restroom, combine these 3, do the parking lot, and then do one for the expansion? Is that what you're suggesting?
Yeah, my initial thought was to kind of go along with the alternate funding without the bond. Of course, that 2018 is the largest, nut to crack on that one. That was $471,000 on Dave's figures there. But I wouldn't mind if we wanted to break it down like you suggested a little further. I mean, definitely want to do the restrooms. And if we lump the other 3 together, and then, yeah, that would leave, let's see, 40, 25. Yeah, I think we should start another separate capital reserve to start funding, the last 2 there.
There is a capital reserve for the parking lot. We
Right.
would add to it, and then you would like to see us do a dock expansion capital reserve?
I think so, yeah.
That's kind of what the dock committee was talking about as well, was to start a capital reserve fund for that this year.
But I think the CIP committee is recommending that that all be bonded in 2019.
Well, I think,
Do like a 10-year bond and just do the whole thing at once.
I think that's the way they saw it, but I think if this board sees it another way, we have the ability to not bond it. We can do it by cash. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, you can, but then you have a double whammy in 2018. You're asking both for the $115,000 for these warrant articles and the $150,000 for the restrooms, and then you're asking yet an additional amount for a, to set aside money for a capital reserve fund.
I think when we,
Well,
okay, Dave.
go ahead.
No, you can go first.
Well, I think that, I think we're kind of agreeing, at least from what I can understand, that these 3 be combined to 115. That'd be just a warrant article this year. The rest of it, except for and also the dock that's already capital reserve fund anyway, right?
There's one on the dock, I think it
I mean,
has,
as far as the build of public restrooms,
it has nothing in it.
It's a separate warrant article.
well, that needs to be a straight warrant article, that needs to be paid this year. I can't see bonding that. But the rest of it, I guess we should be able to think about that. CIP wants to bond everything. Biggest problem is, I'd like to see what we got for bonds and when some of them are gonna retire too. I haven't seen that yet.
We have the debt schedule. It's, I think it's in your budget, back of your budget books.
The ones we got tonight? Mm-hmm. All right, I'd like to look at that because
The,
bonding, as you know, just, it gets out there too far and too much.
if you,
It's the way to do it.
if we do the 150,000 for the bathroom, the 115 and the 50,000, that's 315,000 in 2018. If you can hold that 315 to 219 and 20, you would have probably enough to fund the majority of the repairs, all of the dock expansion, and you could do it all in cash. But I'm not sure how that's going to affect the tax rate this year if you throw 315,000.
We don't know yet
And
either.
then we have to see the list of our warrant articles, and we look at the cash amounts, and we start playing around with it at that point to see what does make sense or not. So my feeling is, as the CIP committee looked at it and the amount, they saw it as suggesting that we bond it. Their report is advisory to us. Give us, and they are the first ones to talk these projects out and to think about them, and I think they do a very good job and gives us a real framework to work from, but we're the ones who line them all up and look at the bottom line on the total impact on the tax rate.
But, you know, I guess the thing is, I don't want to have some of these projects, for instance, like the dock expansion stuff, get pushed out to 2020 either. That's what I'm afraid when I look at this and I start seeing, whoa, now wait a minute. We're going to have this kind of money. We're not only looking at maybe the dock expansion, but the parking lot and everything else being pushed out. So I think we need to see what we come up with the budgets,
I think when we go to look
what we
at
need for warrant articles,
Yeah.
and how they need to be structured.
Yeah, and I believe that next meeting, Mr. Owen, you're going to have the CIP will come to us.
Yeah, your next regular meeting. That was supposed to happen tonight, but the CIP wasn't quite ready for prime time yet.
Yeah.
We're not either, so.
I think we also need to figure out, some of this stuff can't, I mean, some of these things are tied together. You know, you can't break them out, so figure out what could be standalone to move to 2020 and what would be more efficient to do with others.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the 115 because I think we have to do the engineering to know what the cost is going to be. We don't really know what we're talking about. We've got estimates now, and we really need to know.
Right, and we need to know if we can repair something, if we have another useful life of 5 to 10 years, can we do that without it affecting the dock expansion? And that's
Yes.
the big thing. So if we're going to be covering something up, let's fix that now. But a lot of the dock expansion, I think, can go without it impacting the stuff. So it's really the stuff on the seawalls, the concrete walls, and underneath. So that's what we got to figure out. That's why we're doing the engineering together. It makes a lot of sense. So there's no reason why we couldn't start the dock expansion in 2019.
Can I just ask, when is the ramp supposed to be started and completed?
The ramp will, we had a meeting just Tuesday, probably start in November and be done by
Or
Thanksgiving.
not till November?
Yeah, that's the lake is the lowest.
Okay,
We don't
that's
have
fine.
traffic, the whole parking lot we're going to close down.
People are
'cause we-
asking, that's all.
Yep, no, we're moving on, a contract signed, we're starting to move on
Okay.
now, yeah.
Anybody have any other questions for Dave on this?
No.
Okay,
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
we'll move on. And the next item is the town manager search, and I need to read something. I got to find it first, though. Oh, I bet you I can't get it on there. I'll do it off of my phone. I got a letter from Luke I need to read. This is a letter that's to the Board of Selectmen and the public. My apology for missing the meeting tonight. My term for Selectmen ends this coming March, and after much consideration, I have decided not to seek another term. That being said, with the search for the new town manager beginning, I have decided to apply for the position. Moving forward, I will be stepping down during any discussion of the town manager search or an item related to salary or any or other items that would be conflict of interest with my choice to apply for the town manager's position. I wanted all of you to hear that because one of the questions, I had a conversation with Alan Gould, who is the head of MRI, and one of the questions he asked me, because I had an idea that that was going to happen, Luke was going to apply, he asked the board to decide whether during the town manager search process, if somewhere's in that process Luke did not go forward, would this board want him to go back into the process and sit? My feeling is if you stepped out and you'd gone through all of it, you probably should stay out. But I said to him I felt it was up to this board to decide whether they thought if he went through and he was one of the 6 finalists and then didn't make one of the 2 finalists, should he step back into the process? If he applied and didn't even get into the running, does he get to come back in? And that's the decision of the board needs to make.
Yeah, I would suggest that we let him back in because, first of all, he's not going to run for selectman again, it sounds like, unless he changes his mind. But he has been on the board now for, 6 years? And and the fact that he might run, and I didn't know about this till you just read it, means that he probably has some insights on what we're looking for. So I suggest that if he is not running at any given time, or if he withdraws rather, or doesn't make the final cut, that we let him back in.
Dave Senical?
I guess I have mixed feelings about that. I mean, he's not going to know all the background information that we would have had on other applicants. I mean, he obviously can read up on it, but, I guess I have mixed feelings about it. Only to the point that we're going to have more information, and we have to keep bringing him up to date on stuff, maybe. That's one thing. It gives us 5 people voting instead of just 4 of us. So there's that side of it. I guess it really doesn't matter to me one way or the other.
Right?
I think I agree with you, Linda, on this, that if he gets into the process, kind of might depend on how far he goes through the process, or all whatever. So we wouldn't be talking about this if he went all the way through it. It would be a moot point. But like Dave said, we'll have had a lot more information fed to us along the way to get caught up on. We'll have had our interview committees all set up and everything for that. I think it could be a kind of a tougher and even an awkward situation to all of a sudden kind of change the dynamic of the thing, partway through the process. So I think I would agree with you, Linda, on that.
I mean, like I said, I can go either way. It doesn't matter.
I just think it makes it cleaner. It's very clear.
Yeah.
He's out, and then there's no
He's out, right?
out, and it doesn't. There's no questioning why he came back, why we let him back in. So, and I have
Besides, he's going to be not running again anyway. So,
that's right.
yeah, I will agree with you guys.
So do we want to do that as a motion or as a consensus?
I think you got 3 of us. Anyway, David seems to be leaning towards letting him back in, so I'd say myself the consensus would be to not let him back in.
Yeah.
We're fine with the consent. I'm asking
think
whether
so.
you want to vote or a consensus. Okay.
I'm good with the consensus.
Okay. We'll leave it as a consensus that that's the way we. You have the contract that MRI made the changes. As you can see, that the agreement is with the town of Wolfeboro, and all selectmen are signing in the back. On number 13, They made the change that MRI will help with the conditions of employment and draft a conditional offer of employment, which town attorney will review, and then town attorney will develop the employment contract. You can also see on number 11, we have the change that there are going to be 3 panels made up of the 4 community members, 2 employees, one MRI staff, another one 4 community members, 2 department heads, and 1 MRI staff, and then there would be 1 made up of the Board of Selectmen and a MRI staff. And this is really for the public. MRI will review all the documents that we developed 2 years ago. We did a candidate's profile and challenge statement. We did a ad, and we came up with town manager's questions. They will review that, and if there are any changes, suggest them to us. I would like to point out that they put the ad in the publications for us. Last time there were 44 candidates, 16 from New Hampshire, 7 from Maine, 5 from Massachusetts, and 11 from other states. So it seems like they had a pretty wide response. It's 30 days before we get the response back. MRI will take those resumes, and then they will cut it down to 12 to 15 candidates, and they'll do that based on that candidate's profile that we developed. Then MRI will send out to the 10 to 12 candidates the essay questions. They'll do telephone interviews, which will give them an opportunity to not only check their written skills, but also their oral skills, and then they will produce 6 semi-finalists for the interview panels. The final interview will be done by the Board of Selectmen, or probably the final 2 candidates with 1 MRI staff. This time, and we just finished doing a search at the Children's Center, MRI will guarantee to do another free search if the candidate doesn't work out based on a clear termination on performance or the candidate leaves. So we have a little bit of insurance in there. So I was then trying to think about the timeline that we might want to use. And the contract is talking about putting the ad in. We're looking at something that should take 90 to 120 days. We signed the contract today, and then basically they start working on the first 30 days. They kind of review all the stuff we've done. And you can see on page 4 there is a kind of a timeline in terms of weeks. So I was trying to decide and see where you are as a board on when we should really start this search. Our end goal is to get somebody here as soon as we can after the budget season, and the reason we're using that timeline is that we have our finance director leaving in June. In June he's retiring, and trying to get the new town manager in enough time to be able to spend some time with Pete before he leaves. So if we started the first week in January, and they put out the ads, do all that kind of stuff. The first week in February, they score the resumes. They get us down to get down to 12 to 15, and then they send out the essays. That would be done around the end of February. Take 4 weeks for them to do all the background checks. That would take us into the middle of March. Then the last 2 weeks of March would be probably when we would do the interview panels. And then you probably would not get a town manager on until the 1st of May, because most town managers would have to give some kind of notice. So then I was thinking, well, maybe we should start in December. December is a month that there's a lot happening.
David, what do you think? I mean, because how long do you want to stay here? Or when do you want to go?
My previous understanding with the board was that I was be here until the end of March, and we had a window of sometime between April 1 and June 30th.
So, I mean, in other words, May 1st is acceptable or not acceptable?
Oh, yeah, of course.
Okay.
Works, yeah.
That'll give them in the 1st of May, that'd give them May.
Yeah, start January 1st. Gives us till 1st of May.
That
the
sounds
end of
good. David, our present town manager's on board, and I think that's a good plan.
Yeah, I'm just trying to get,
The holiday season's over.
that's what I was, and I just wanted, that would give them about a month, maybe 2 months with the finance director, if that feels good.
Yep.
All right, so then the next question is that, and it was in your packet, there is a draft ad to get volunteers. And I had Dave,
This will be put in the paper or on the website? as well?
Yes, that's the idea.
and I'm looking
How
at
soon?
Well,
February.
whenever the board says.
February, 1st of February?
Yeah, but I just wanted the
Yeah.
board to take a look at it and see if this is how they would like it, and,
Do you want to read it so everybody knows?
okay, sure. The Wolfeboro Board of Selectmen seeks applicants from the community and business leaders, department heads and town employees, and other interested residents who would be willing participants in the selection process of choosing the town's next town manager. These volunteers will serve on one of 3 interview panels that will interview candidates for the town manager's position and will make recommendation about their preferred candidates to the Board of Selectmen. The selected panelists' recommendations will be advisory in nature, and the final decision regarding the selection of the new town manager rests with the Board of Selectmen. And then it just tells you, persons interested in participating in the process are urged to convey their interest to the Board of Selectmen either by letter at the Board of Selectmen, P.O. Box 629, Wolfeboro, New Hampshire, or by email, and it's the town manager's email address.
Do you want to have a limit on the number? If 45 people apply to one position, do you want to select or just let everybody be a part of it?
We have decided that we're going to have 3 panels. 2 of the panels are going to have 4 community members. So we're going to have 8 community members, 4 employees.
That number isn't what you read, though.
No.
No, that's in what we have just gone over in terms
Right.
of this contract. I don't think we're going to limit the number of people who apply.
Right,
We're
okay.
going to have to choose out of the number of people who apply.
So who selects the panel? Do we select the panelists then?
We're going to select the panel.
This is in the future, David. This won't be till February.
We'll put it in the paper in February
Good, okay.
when we get down.
That way, if somebody has like a one agenda situation, they don't want zoning or in North Wolfeboro or something, we want people with broad thinking,
Well, we're going to have our work cut out for her.
Right.
The only comment that Alan Gould had was that he was afraid that if we took too many people from the public and not use MRI, that it would become too political. And I said to him, this is the process that we use to get Dave Owen, and I thought it worked well. I personally feel that we know the community and understand the community, and I think we have been pressured on all sorts of stuff and do what we think is best.
Yeah, I think we can agree to name the committees easily enough because we all know the people.
Yep. Anybody else have any comment on that? All comfortable?
Yep.
All right. So I'll make a motion that we sign the MRI contract tonight.
I'll second that.
Any further discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the motion carried. All righty, now we're on to the dates.
The budget
The
hearings.
budget hearings?
Yes. When we set the budget hearing dates with you, I guess we all sort of spaced out and forgot that October 9th is Columbus Day, a federal holiday, and so we won't be doing any budget hearings on the 9th. So we've packed all the departments into the remaining dates, as you can see there. Some of them are pretty ambitious.
Yeah,
On the 12th.
Yeah.
yeah.
You
better bring a lot of
may need
food for
one.
that one.
You may need one additional date. Plus, Dave says he can't be here on the 16th, so you may want to reconsider that date also.
And we move that to it's good to have him here. Can we move that to the 17th or something, or the 13th? I mean, the 15th? No, we can't move it to Sunday. Move it to the 17th?
Well, how about if
Yeah,
we go down to
planning
the
board.
next week?
Planning board's in here on the 17th.
Can we go down to the next week? We stayed away from the week of the 23rd because Dave was going to be away. I talked to him, and he felt very confident that Peter could run one of our meetings, and so I was wondering whether we wanted to move the 16th to the 24th of October. I can't do the 23rd. I have another meeting. Does the 24th work for?
That's fine with me.
Okay, so the
for
16th
you?
will become the 24th, and then we have to find an additional meeting.
So Tuesday, 24th,
Tuesday, the 24th of October,
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock. They're all at 6 o'clock.
And that's the one from the 16th, so I'm going to be feeding you people on the 24th?
Yes.
Okay.
We can either, that gives us 2 that week. We either can try to get in a third one, or we could go to Monday, the 30th. Just depends upon how often we want to be together.
30th works for me.
My suggestion for the additional meeting is to put it October 30th. If we don't
If
need
it's
it,
necessary.
we don't have to do it.
Right. What day is October 30th? What
It
day?
is a Monday,
That's fine with me.
all right? So we're changing the 16th to the 24th, and we're going to add an extra day on the 30th. And that's going to be if needed.
Yeah.
You want to put down food, you're going to be on the
I'm doing,
11th, I'll do the 12th, and you want to fill in the rest?
Halloween's the 31st?
Right,
Is that when they're trick-or-treating?
right.
31st?
That's on,
Okay.
on Tuesday, yep.
Yep, all right. That's the hay wagon.
Yep.
You don't want to blow it again and put it on holiday?
No,
Okay,
I can't be there the 31st. I have a hay wagon
oh,
engagement.
okay. I've got Wednesday, the 11th to do food. Who has Thursday, the 12th?
Me?
Well, this is who had it before.
What?
You had the 9th before. I'm trying to see.
We
if-
don't have the 9th anymore, right?
No, but I'm trying to get people to pick other dates. Brad, Dave, you had the 16th, so you're going to the 24th?
Yes.
Dave Senical?
Yep,
Brad, what night were
Let me
you
write
doing?
that down.
I had the 26th, but I would like to, if I could get a different night now, because we just scheduled last week the next rural road meeting at 4:30 that afternoon, so I'm going to be here till 5:30, and then we'll be right, I'll stay right here through to 6, so it would be easier if I had a different night to do food.
You don't want the 26th,
Sixth.
you would like I don't know who's doing the 18th, so I'll give you the 18th.
Okay,
This will be Brad. And Dave Bowers,
18th, or the 19th. That's,
that's right, the 18th is a regular.
oh, the
Regular
18th is
meeting.
a regular,
Regular
okay,
meeting.
it's the 19th, yes, okay, I'll move over
19th.
with Brad.
So
Okay.
I'm on the 19th now.
Dave Bowers would like the 12th. And I don't know which one Luke was doing.
Yep.
Okay, so I'm going to do the 11th, Dave Bowers going to do the 12th, Dave Senical's going to do the 24th, Brad's going to do the 19th,
So we can give Luke the 26th?
we'll give Luke the 26th. And when we get the 30th, maybe we can just order pizza if we go there.
yep.
Sounds like a
Mr.
plan.
Owen's good at doing that.
What?
Mr. Owen's good at picking pizza.
Yeah, he's good at picking up the pizza, so we'll give you the pizza on that night.
Okay.
All right.
Good.
Is there any other business? Any old business?
Gotta keep that out.
Mr. Owen, Town Manager's report.
Just a very few things to report out this evening. As mentioned, the CIP report will be on your next regular agenda. I also anticipate that the decision relative to the Class 6 road building permit application will be on that same meeting. That would be on the 18th. So that one looks like it'll be a bit much busier meeting agenda. The RFP for the public safety building space needs study and design. We've had 11 architectural firms to date request the full request for proposals, so that seems to be drawing some interest.
Yeah, you think?
I think I mentioned to the board that the property next door to the parking lot here, the pain clinic property, is on the market again, and I'm not aware that the town has any interest in acquiring it. I've also mentioned it to the regional school district as it abuts their Carpenter School property also, but I don't think they have any real interest either. And finally, we've been having some changes amongst employees, and we had another one in the Parks and Rec Department last week where a probationary employee was let go, and in place we've hired one of the seasonal employees and made him full-time. So that's what's going on there. That's all I have.
Okay, I'll start down the far end with committee reports. Brad?
Yeah, let's see. We had the annual meeting at Living Museum the end of September. It was a nice meeting there with a speaker there from the Loon Society up in Leesville up there. It was a very nice presentation on the loons there. Last night we had a planning board meeting, and really the only thing on the agenda that we ended up dealing with was there was an appeal for the driveway permit up on Stoneham Road of the Simmons. The planning board denied the appeal. The Greens had filed for the appeal on that, so we ended up denying. And it was just for the driveway permit itself. That was the only part that was being looked at. And we also had last week we had a Wolfeboro Community TV meeting.
Dave?
Had zoning board of adjustment meeting, had 2 variances, they were both granted. And also I spent most of the day out at Abenaki last weekend with Parks and Rec, a lot of different organizations there. We were giving hay rides for the afternoon. That was a lot of fun.
Didn't you do something with the Chili Fest?
I did not, I had a choice of being at Abenaki or at the Chili.
Oh, my, oh, my.
Next year, they're going to try and get the chili contest out there as well. So
Do both.
we don't have that issue again. But no, I did not participate in the
thought-
chili. I couldn't do both.
Dave Bowers?
I went to the auditing the library trustees as I usually do, and in recent times, most talk has been about the proposed new library. The library did have a situation where a staff member was shocked in changing a light thing, and this member had to go to Huggins Hospital. So I said, well, you know, the library trustees don't necessarily like the building because they're always having problems with air conditioning and so forth, and the building doesn't like you either. But everything seems to be coming along well, and it's a very harmonious group.
Okay, I have been at 2 CIP meetings, and as Mr. Owen said, that we're still working on it. I hope that we have the final edition tomorrow. The Special Events Committee for last night in Wolfeboro have been meeting, and I want to show the public, this is the winter catalog for Parks and Rec. Get the front page here. It's just come out, and in that brochure is a save the date for last night in Wolfeboro. So we're now working on trying to find some entertainment, some dancing for night, and getting different groups in town maybe to take the responsibility for some of the events and refreshments. My understanding is the ski club is going to do popcorn and hot dogs out in the hallway. So that's starting to move along. I also went this weekend to the Cotton Valley Trail celebration and Gold Spike. That project, I gave a little speech, and I want to point out to the public that it started in 1992. It took 25 years for it to be completed all the way out to Wakefield. There were two very key individuals. One was Paul Damaris of the Cotton Valley Trail, and the other one was Bruce Stewart of the Cotton Valley Rail Club. So that was fun, and it rained. I hope you had less rain than I did, and it was damp. I went today to the dedication of the Hope House down here on Laner Street. I would say there were about 75 people, well attended, and that project is going to move forward. They're hoping to start construction in December. Okay, any questions from the press?
Oh, Linda, on the Hope House,
Yeah.
at Abenaki, they had that race on Saturday.
Yep.
They raised just over $7,000.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah. Questions from the press? You need to go to the mic.
So Brad, you said at the planning board meeting, the Greens appealed the driveway permit for the Simmons?
The planning board denied the appeal.
Okay, they did. That's what I wanted to
Yep.
verify.
Now it's time for public input, 3 minutes per person, the whole process not to exceed 15 minutes.
Good evening. My name is Josephine Amatucci. I have like 3/4 of a page. Recently, I visited the Ossipee Courthouse and found that the former Police Chief Stuart Chase was working there as a security officer. I was appalled because Chase is a felon who committed serious crimes against me, and he was terminated as a police chief for those crimes. I went to see the sheriff and complained to him that he had no right to hire a felon in the courthouse. The sheriff told me that in his investigation in the town files, he found that no one filed criminal complaints against Chief Chase. Therefore, I am asking the selectmen to explain to me why the sheriff did not find my complaints in the town hall. Why did he find all my complaints? My many, many complaints about Chief Chase. He said there was nothing. Where are they? Where are all my letters?
My one comment to you, Josephine, is Chief Chase was not fired, he retired.
He was fired. That's what you people do. That's what government does. They tell them retire or you will be prosecuted, or
No.
you'll be terminated.
He
All right, forget
retired.
that. What about my issue here?
I have no idea what the sheriff looked at. I have no idea
All
where he
right,
went.
where are my complaints? I filed them to you, the town, not the commissioners, to you. Where are my complaints?
They're in the town files.
They're where?
They're in one of the town files.
Well, how come he couldn't find them?
I don't know where he looked.
No, you people
No.
took
I haven't-
out the files and didn't show my complaints. So the point is, you're going to give me those files, copies. I'm going to take them to the sheriff, and the former Chief Chase is going to get prosecuted, because that's what I was doing in the courthouse. I'm trying to get him prosecuted. You know what that means? I'm trying to get him in jail.
All right, any other
One more
public
thing, you're gonna
comment?
have to find a
Excuse
new
me,
police chief
you're away
soon.
from it, sit down. All right, any other public comment? Seeing none, can I have a motion from the board to go into non-public session?
So move.
Second?
Yes, so moved.
Yes, yes, yes?
Yes.
Okay, we're out.
I seconded it. Dave motioned.